Okay, thank you very much for joining this session, which for us is extremely important because it's the official launch of the digital archive, Timaeus and its legacy. The people, the team, or better, the people of the research team who mostly worked on this output are Laura Follesa, Laura Marongiu, and Laura Duarte from the PROTEUS research team, and myself. But let's say that I put the original idea and of course collaborated with them, but most of the work has been done by the Lauras. And as you can see, it's a very, very intriguing coincidence. By the way, said this is a result of the ERC project. Can you please move the slide? It doesn't work. I don't know why. Okay, so the project PROTEUS Paradoxes and Metaphors of Time in Early Universes ran from 2018 and hopefully will happily end in August 2023. And we plan, of course, to implement this digital archive through time. So it's not something that won't exist anymore after the project. It's a long enduring result. It's an enduring result. The project, as you probably read on our website, deals with different conceptions of time related to different cosmological models in different epochs. And however, the project starts with the consideration that Plato's Timaeus played a fundamental role throughout Western culture in shaping the idea of non-fundamentality of time. In other words, that time came into being. The time is something generated. It's not something that is essential for the constitution of the form or the shape of the universe. It's more something that sprung out or comes together to the physical universe, but is not something that is prior to it. Now, so as said, don't took. So the origin of the idea, of course, relies on the assumption that Plato's work was ubiquitous in Western culture, and we have traces of it in several studies, not only regarding the history of philosophy, but also the history of science, the history of literature, and so on. And my first question when I selected this dialogue and decided to implement the idea of a digital archive was the following. It's a very simple question, namely, can we measure in a way or another the impact of Plato's Timaeus with precision in different epochs? The second question was the following, namely whether Timaeus is really, really far from us today for several reasons that can, of course, concern both the development of science and technology, but also philosophy. Or perhaps there are still some traces of this dialogue in current physics and in current cosmology. The other question was whether Timaeus' legacy was cyclically impacting our culture, and of course, if it was the case, how how it's possible? Why is that? So what do we find? Heisenberg writing in his works that Timaeus impacted so much his early life, and why he stated in several passages that there is a Platonic revival in modern physics, or think of Hermann Weyl, for example, and all his considerations on the Pythagorean nature of the metric of space-time. So that said, in order to create a digital archive that span for more than 2,000 years, of course, and touching many different fields, I needed a multidisciplinary research team, which is precisely what I built up. And also we wanted to create, as I mentioned before, an archive that could endure through time and that could be kept alive by users. So not something like a passive repository of materials, something that can be implemented through time, to which new sources can be added, and also sort of a digital place in which discussions among scholars from different fields could have been made. So what we are going to launch today is the first 3, no subscriptions needed, online interacting digital archive on the topic of the impact of PROTEUS Timaeus. And it's the first digital archive combining authors from different epochs and thus connecting experts from different fields that can chat in real time. Of course, in order to achieve this goal, I mean, there was hard work behind it, and it was a long way before achieving this goal. So I'm now leaving it to Laura, to the first Laura, to continue. You have to...
Okay. So we had started with the digitalize the many source, what inspired Silvia's project, the PROTEUS project, what was the Timaeus from Plato, the critique of judgment by Kant, and the Schelling's comments on the Timaeus. That was the first part of the work many years ago. Then we started to add many sources with different approach of cosmological aspect in Plato's Timaeus. As you can see, Hegel, Proclus, and many others at the first 2 years. But this structure was changing during the time, and now we are ended up with other structure, with Laura will be going.
No? Yes. So we started collected many sources. We have about 500 primary sources, and we have the feeling this is just at the beginning of the work. So these sources are very different and different kind of sources, and involve several periods of the history of thought, not only from the history of philosophy, but they belong to several, or they can be related to several disciplines. So history of science and medicine, epistemology, history of philosophy of physics, and so on. So they are also sources written in different language, from Greek to Latin and modern sources. So German and Italian and so on. So this is the reason why we are trying to involve other scholars that help us to have a wide picture of the reception of Timaeus also in other countries and in other languages that we maybe don't know, for instance, Turkish or other sources, Arabic. And yes, maybe Laura wants to add something more?
Yeah, maybe another small thought on this slide is that it goes without saying that there are many, many studies on this topic, on the reception of latest Timaeus, but as Laura was already anticipating, our aim was to cover a wider array, so both in chronological terms, but also in terms of different approaches in languages. And then now, regarding to this slide, so this concerns a little bit the criteria of selection we were reflecting upon. So some of these criteria were defined before collecting the sources, but of course we realized very soon that this criteria had to be rethought. And so maybe this is just a sketch to show you how we organize all the materials we have. We came up with 5 categories. And with these categories, we identify the function and the role of different texts. And as you can see on the right side, so some texts, some of these circles, like the number 1, are very, very close to the Timaeus. And this is the case of editions and translations. Some are pretty close, like the number 2, like commentaries on latest Timaeus. But there are also many other studies which have a more indirect impact. So they have an influence, but maybe they may also contain no quotations, not direct quotation of the Timaeus, and exactly, and that would be indirect impact. So the last yellow circle. Maybe we can just give a case in point by showing the website. Just a second. Wait, like this. So this is the website. Maybe, Lau, do you want to show Heisenberg case in point, for example, just to show an example of, or maybe you can just show the main part.
So, okay, as you can see, sorry. Okay, as you can see, we have an home page with the main search tool, and you have the description of the project, the research team, so we essentially, and the possibility to search, if you go to to make this search according to different kind of selection. And also, yes, we can choose to have a look to the authors, the title, or the categories. At the moment, we are implementing the database with all the sources we have collected. If you go to one of these authors or one of these sources, you will be able to look look at the bibliographical reference, all the information, the description of the work that shows you a little bit why we have decided to put this work in the archive. And on the left, you can have a look to the work if available, because we have 2 kind of sources. So the protected one that we are not able to completely show, and the free one, so mainly the old sources. And you can have a look at the document or even download the book. In this case, we have just a preview of the work, but it is possible in other cases to download the whole work. You can also share, of course. So we insist on this part of on this aspect of the work, because for us the goal was not to collect sources and have a final product, but to have a dynamic product. So a way to be in contact with other scholars, to exchange knowledge, to exchange information, and to work together, because also the graphics we have shown to you are not the definitive side of the work, but it's just a first step, and we are sure that in the future we can have a different kind of relationship between periods and different kinds of sources. Yes. Oh, Silvia, maybe.
So, of course, different categories and different ways of grouping, and so also understanding the impact of Timaeus. Of course, by having constructed a database, we'll be able to do statistics and all these, and also eventually what we want to do next step, apply machine learning and artificial intelligence to this bunch of work. So this is an official call for users. We have actually activated, it's fully available to the public, the forum, Timaeus and its legacy. It's possible to go to the forum directly from the website. Can you show them, Laura? So if you go, it's the first, yeah, just click and the forum opens, and you can log in if you like. So on the right hand side, you can sign up. It's completely for free. You can sign up with Facebook, Google, or with your email. So if you go back, you have no, go back to the forum. No. So once you log in, you'll be able, of course, to search through our collections, through the digital archive, because it's open in another window. So you can continue then by starting, let's say, interacting with us. Now, first, what you can do is to start conversations. So if you become a member, if you log in and request to become a member, you can start a discussion. Of course, you don't see here discussions because the discussions are not open, that they're not available on the web, not yet at least, but they are private, only for people who are registered. So I know that it sounds a little bit strange, but we have to think about this pyramid first in order to avoid, you know, spamming and so on and so forth. And we want first to build up first level of users. There are scholars that either we personally know or that are suggested by people who we know, and build up a first group of, say, 100 or 200 users, and then open it to the general public with certain, of course, ethical rules and so on. But in principle, you can start conversations in general discussions, by sharing media, and you can also chat in real time. So once a group is created, a chat group can be also created in the chat app, and we can be all connected in real time and discuss specific questions or share links to new works, or suggest new materials, or discuss on problematic concepts, or, you know, look for events that could be of interest for the enrichment of the archive, and so on and so forth. Of course, there are contacts. So right now, go down. This is the email, info@timaeuslegacy.org. timaeus.eu, because of course the website of the archive is timaeuslegacy.eu. So the archive is now available and online. We have an email of the archive, and you can contact us either by chat through the forum or via email here. Of course, now that you know us also personally, you can contact us at our personal email as well. So I think that it's all for the time being. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and thank again Laura Maronzo, Laura Folles, and Laura Duarte for the great job they have done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This looks like a very took a lot of effort to make together. So I just have a question. Would you consider adding maybe in the future a feature to like translate sections of manuscripts, especially those written in non-European languages, and then maybe like post sections of these translated sections? I don't know, something like this. Yeah, in the forum. Yeah, in the forum, of course. Yeah, in the forum for discussion. So maybe.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I can only partially answer right now, in the sense that it's clear that once you have a large group, not 500, I'm talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of sources, then, well, it's possible to get permission to get the text. The problem is that you cannot make all available in full sometimes online because of copyright, you know. But it's also true that for research purposes, you can even ask Google Scholar to give you access to the database that they have. So the problem is not that. The problem is that translations of large texts can be made available only by using certain techniques and technologies based on artificial intelligence. And as you know, the translation that a human being can do is much better than a translation that a machine can do. Also, we're not talking about model languages. So my answer is yes, for model languages, for texts pertaining to 20th century onward, it's fine. This can be done easily. What's more complex is to do that for ancient works and ancient languages. So that's much more difficult, of course. So thank you very much for your question.
So thank you, that looks amazing. And I was wondering if you're going to be cataloging the secondary literature that's being produced every year, like in specialized journals, and if so, to what extent would it be made accessible? So maybe just the papers that are already open access, or you're going to like write summaries or?
I don't know. I'll give you the microphone. Can you go to the website and show the links to the other archives? We didn't show that. The section regarding the links. So we have a section because, of course, we don't put the whole secondary literature. So, but we think about, you know, the 5 categories that we decided in order to group the works. And but what we do is to put links to relevant repositories or archives where you can find either primary or secondary sources. I don't know whether...
Yeah, well, I was thinking also about the fact that so the forum and the archives are public, so we are not allowed to put that there are some of the most recent papers or studies. So, but the fact that we created the forum serves also to this purpose. So we can enter in contact and maybe privately or we can suggest the way to achieve these papers somehow. So it means that we create a force also to compensate this part of this little problem, let's say, that we are not allowed to make available all the text. Yeah. And maybe as concerned the recent sources, it is the same, not only with secondary literature, but also with philosophies of physics or sources that discuss Timaeus, and we consider them as primary sources, but they are recent. It is the same. It is the same, of course.
Well, a way to overcome these difficulties, the following is to do what we did, for example, in the case of works that couldn't be fully published, but just in selection, for example, so just a preview or something that you can give of a certain paper, right? So you can give the preview of the paper, and you can go to the description. So if you go, for example, if you take the example of Heisenberg's work, you find in the bibliographic reference, okay, you find the complete bibliographical reference. In this case, that could be even the link to the paper, you know, that was published on, I don't know, archive, whatever, certain prestigious journal, you know, or and in the description, for example, in the case of Heisenberg, we even quoted the pages in which, so basically it's the whole section 1 of the work is devoted to PROTEUS Timaeus, but with emphasis, of course, on page 7, because it's there where he says why for him is relevant PROTEUS, how the work impacted his view of modern physics and theory of matter. So we can do the same for recent secondary sources. Like, okay, there is this paper by X that is very relevant for PROTEUS studies, assessing the impact of the work on this and that field. And then put the link, even if it's not, for us, it's important, I mean, the metadata, what's important is to see how much is published, when, where, and especially in which country, in which language. So these are the relevant data for the statistics. So for me, as you remember, the first question is, how do we measure the impact of PROTEUS Timaeus? And of course, also from a qualitative standpoint. So I don't know, did I answer to your question?
So I can also add the fact that you can see, if you have a look at the sources we have collected up to now, you can see that we focus mainly on the history of Western. So a really great goal would be to involve scholars who can help us to find some literature, some sources that belong to other traditions or other languages. This is very important for us because at the moment we are not able to show you some parts of this impact, and it would be a very important element for a complete or for a wider,
For example, there are a lot of Arabic sources, and we are aware of them. Of course, we know the authors that discuss PROTEUS Timaeus, but we don't. Also, it's let's say classic Arabic, so it's a bit difficult, and it's also difficult for us to read because the character of a 13th century book it's hard to read. So we really need people from different fields and different expertise and different languages and cultures to help us. And this is great in the sense that we can put together people that normally wouldn't interact at all. So we found this very, yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Interesting way to do our job, let's say, so to do research. I don't know if there are other questions.
What is the criteria to define which text has a Timaeus legacy? Does it have to be an explicit quote or a broad heritage? And if so, how can you like distinguish, for example, a Timaeus legacy or a Neoplatonical one or Neopythagorean one? It's not.
So thank you for the question. It's a big question, but at this point of time, we actually included also a number of sources which do not quote the Timaeus. In the beginning, our criteria were more narrow, but actually then there are also a number of texts, like, for example, Maimon analysis on the world soul. It's on the world soul, but Plato is not there. So not even, so the Timaeus and also Plato are never mentioned. But for us, it's interesting to take into account. And then this is the starting point for, I would say, for undertaking further research. But yeah, at this point of time, the main task was collecting as many sources as possible, including also, as they were already saying, periods and epochs that are, usually not so much covered. Or there are also chronological epochs like the Middle Ages, where there are a lot of studies, a lot of material, but perhaps the PDF are really hard to find. We have some manuscripts, but they are not open access, and so there is also a lot to do in this sense. Something more?
Maybe just second something, but I would also like to say that, Laura, can you put the PowerPoint, please? So it is clear, since you ask about categories, it is clear that we've made a selection, of course, in order to prepare these graphics. But it is obvious that sometimes we have an edition or a translation of the Timaeus that includes also a commentary. So we decided to assign a main category to a source, but we have sources that belong to many categories. This is also a tricky point to prepare the graphics and to measure. The same is concerned the periods. Not all the scholars agree about to which age, to which periods must be. So a work must be so to which period a work must belongs essentially. So this is also something that we are shaping and that we are discussing all the time. So thank you for the question.
No, you said everything. Other questions? No questions? Okay. So thank you very much. And please let us know whether you want to take part in this project of the digital archive, Timaeus and its legacy. Thank you very much.